And good evening and happy Sabbath to those of you who've joined us online. Welcome to our evening study. And we'll start with hymn number 625. Hymn number 625. Higher Ground, hymn number 625. I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day, still praying as I onward bound. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and I shall stand, by faith on heaven's firmament, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. My heart has no desire to stay where doubts arise and fears dismay. Though some may dwell where these abound, my prayer, my aim is higher ground. Lord, lift me up and I shall stand, by faith on heaven's firmament, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to live above the world, though Satan's darts at me are hurled. For faith has brought the joyful sound, the song of saints on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and I shall stand, by faith on heaven's firmament, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to steer the utmost height and catch a gleam of glory bright, but still I'll pray till heaven I found. Lord, lead me on to higher ground. Lord, lift me up and I shall stand, by faith on heaven's firmament, a higher plane than I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Amen. I'll now turn it over to Pastor Lloyd Grubb.
At this time, we'll pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank you again for the blessings of this day, for the blessings of rest, for blessings of fellowship. I pray you may bless us by thy Spirit as we study thy word for Christ's sake. Amen. So I want to share this thought with you here. This very interesting thought, something we've been dealing with for years now. And I feel like we have come to a level of maturity with this. So somehow when I had that glitch a few weeks ago with that TV, I've not been able to get it to work again. So I'm still working on it. And some other things that I'm working on. But I don't know what happened from that day when this computer glitched out. So anyhow, I just have some text to share, and an Ellen G. White quote from Volume 6 of the Testimony. And from the statement, the topic is, reformers are not destroyers, but must advance, not retreat. So reformers are not destroyers, but advance, they must advance and not retreat. And as I was sitting there and tomorrow singing Higher Ground, a thought had come to my mind with an experience I'd had about probably 13 years ago, or 13, probably 14, I don't know. But I was at a church, and there was a conflict that arose, And I remember one of the gentlemen there says, you see yourself as a reformer. And he saw it as a negative thing. And you say you see yourself as a reformer. Now, at this point, I didn't per se, I guess I probably did, but not really see myself as a reformer. But sometimes I tell people that your talent or something that you are is often what people observe of you. So you kind of have to listen to people's observation of you. And I say, okay, so that's how he observes me. And I found that fascinating. And so, but the problem is when you're in a situation of, if you're like a reformer and you're working within a system, I always realized from early that the system will not allow you to vote for reform. Like reformation don't come to a system because the system voted for it. I say vote and say, well, all 12 of you on the board, let's have a discussion, or 30 people on the board, let's have a discussion and vote for reformation that we're going to change the way we do things. This normally comes from pressure, right? And so if you're a reformer, the whole function of a reformer is pressure. You see that? You're going to have to apply pressure. So how do you apply pressure when you're in a system and the system is forcing or pushing back against reformation, right? Because then it tends to make you become aggressive. And I remember at times when I was inside of the mainline church, the Seventh Adventist Corporation, or main body, don't call it even corporation, you tend to be very, it tend to kind of make me start becoming aggressive because you're getting pushback. And how do you deal with pushback? You push back. They push, you push, you push, they push, and you always have a tug of war. You can't ever be at peace. And Sabbath wasn't a place to enjoy Sabbath because you always was a conflict on Sabbath. And I could never figure out what to do because the concept of independent was not fully realized or realized by my mind to really understand what is the place of independence. But what independence does is give you opportunity to just do your thing and let they do their thing. And the two don't have to ever meet. And I'm going to show now from the Bible why, right? And from just one chapter, paragraph I have to read from Ellen G. White. The rest of it I'm going to show from the Bible. So what I want to look at, what the concept here that I'm pulling from the statement and from some of these Bible passages, is how to balance the concept of not taking out those that don't agree with you. And I said taking out. You know what I mean? I said you take somebody out. Take them out at the knees, so to speak. Or you just cut them down. Don't agree with your plans, right? And while still firmly moving forward. So how to move forward and not take out those, not take out those who are not in agreements with your plan, right? So hopefully you get that. So how do you don't take out somebody at the knee and still move forward with your plan? And this to me was the most difficult thing years back I couldn't figure out. How do you move forward and not taking out? And even while we're doing independent church, I couldn't figure it out either because I was like, you know, we are here together, we need to move forward together, but they're going to have disagreement. So how do you even move forward with that? So I'm going to keep coming back to this premise for the rest of our time here together. Now in Acts chapter 4, verse 11, if you could stir your Bibles with me to Acts chapter 4, verse 11 through 13. Because reformers are not destroyers. Because think about it, when you have a disagreement, you tend to start to go this side against that side, right? You go the liberals against the conservatives. And Acts chapter 4, verse 11 through 13. So liberals against conservative, you know, Republicans against Democrat, and you take each other out. But how do you function in church and not have to do this? And that becomes a problem because there's one system and you're fighting for the system. So how do you go forward and do reformation and do the things you need to do without have to have active engagement in trying to take out your enemy or those who disagree with you, those who agree with your plan? That becomes to me one of the most difficult things because there's certain things that are just going to happen because they're just going to happen. Like, if you think about it, some people will say if you're for a renewable energy, you must be a liberal. If you're for climate change or no climate change, you must be liberal or conservative. But it doesn't matter if our water is tainted. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that if there's savings to be made by doing renewable energy or renewable material, it doesn't matter. It's just a good thing. It doesn't matter if you're liberal. But imagine now if you say we need to make changes, and somebody say, oh no, if you want to make changes in anything to help the environment, you must be a liberal. You can't be just, let's just make the change and forget about this liberal or conservative mantra. This has been the most difficult thing because normally you would say if you do certain things, you must be liberal. Think about it, a few years ago, 20 years ago, if you were into anything to do with natural health, you must be like a hippie or stuff like that, right? It wasn't because you're doing it because you feel healthier. You're doing it because it's like you probably have an agenda, right? So Reformation becomes stuck into this paradigm, this disagreement, because now everything is always put in a box. And everything is good, you can't do it because, you know, you must be for this thing or you must be that or you must be crazy, cuckoo, or you must be protecting an institution. You can't do all things. Notice in Acts 4 verse 11 through 13. It says, this is the stone which is set at naught of you builders, which has become the head of the corner. So was Christ a reformer? Did they reject Christ? Yes. Was Christ for the Sadducees? No. Was he for the Pharisees? No, it's totally different from both of their systems. It's the same thing. If Christ came today, Christ wouldn't be a liberal and Christ wouldn't be a conservative. Because things still need to be, like, things are still not working. So, okay, like you could disagree with gun laws or no gun laws. At the end of the day, we have other issues like mental health problem. We have other issues where it's easy to go to Pennsylvania. It used to be easy to go to Pennsylvania, buy a firecracker, and then bring it back into New Jersey. So somebody will say, wait a minute now, we need to have sensible firecracker laws in New Jersey. But you can't have sensible firecracker laws in New Jersey if Pennsylvania is a free-for-all. Because all somebody's going to go to Pennsylvania, buy the firecrackers, and bring them back in New Jersey and blow off their fingers. Doesn't matter. Or disturb you at night when you want to sleep because you have to go to work the next day. So if you don't have it over there, so somebody goes say, oh no, if you say that, Lord, you're anti-conservative. No, if I say that, I'm sensible. And you're just being silly. Right? So you can't have no discussion because it's either liberal or conservative. So if I see a man homeless right there and I say he's a military vet, how many, I would think the largest percent of military vets would say, if you help that man, you're a socialist. How do you think about that? I bet if you bring me 100 military vets, I guarantee probably 70 to 80% of them would say, if you help that man on the side of the street, you're a socialist. But I said, but he's an ex-military vet. Why wouldn't you be a socialist for him? You see the problem? You can't think, you're stuck in these boxes. And you can't have any logical. So here they rejected Christ, but was Christ going to bless them? Welcome. Was Christ going to bless them, right? Yes. Right. So neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled, and they took knowledge of them that they had been with what? With Jesus, right? So they look at them and they say, okay, these guys sound sensible, but they're unlearned. And they marvel. Now, why was Peter and John so bold? Because they have gotten that holy boldness from the Spirit. They had walked with Christ. What they were saying, they became a master of what they were doing. And they spoke that way. Now, they could have spoken that they were reformers and they were going to do their thing. That means it didn't matter what they said or what they do, they were going to do their thing. It was irrespective of consequence. It was irrespective of what. If they approved of it, then they weren't going for approval from the leading men in the church. They were just doing their thing. So I want to keep that in mind, and I want to read a statement for you. If you have one of these fancy tablets, as they call them, you probably could pull it up in Ellen G. White's writing. It's volume 6 of the testimony, page 151, paragraph 1. If you have it, you could read it along. As I say, I glitched out that thing the last time and I can't figure out how to get it going, so I can't stream it to the screen. So I'm just going to read it off my screen here. So again, volume 6 of the testimony, page 151. It says, reformers are not destroyers. They will never seek to ruin those who do not harmonize with their plans and assimilate to them. Reformers must advance, not retreat. They must be decided, firm, resolute, unflinching, but firmness must not degenerate into a domineering spirit. God desires to have all who serve him firm as a rock, where principle is concerned, but meek and lowly of heart, as was Christ. Then, abiding in Christ, they can do the work he would do were he in their place. A rude, condemnatory spirit is not essential to heroism in the reforms for this time. All selfish methods in the service of God are an abomination in his sight. So notice he says there that reformers are not destroyers. They do not seek to destroy those who don't want to work with their methods. Right? So that means, like I remember there's a statement Ellen G. White makes, it says we're not supposed to attack scientific institutions. So even if we don't want to go over there and break the molecule open or do genetical engineering, even if we disagree with it, but it's not our intention to take them down, right? Because they're not with us, because they're doing something different, right? Some things you just leave alone. And Joel says, look, we're not even, we don't agree with the Catholic Church, but we're not trying to destroy it. It's not our business. God says he will do what he will do when he's ready to do what he's going to do. It's not our aim to attack other people, other ministers from other church and stuff like that. No, there's a time when you have to go after what they're teaching. And courage is needed, but your intention is not to destroy. Because it's like a doctor. When they say a doctor is supposed to be able to save life. That's why doctors don't execute the death penalty. Because then one day they're in the place, they're killing somebody, the next day in the hospital trying to save life. It's just the two should not meet, right? They're supposed to do no harm, right? And that's where the problem is. So in my mind now, the next statement, they must be decided, firm, resolute, unflinching, but firmness must not degenerate into domineering spirit. So how do you blend those two? This has been the issue because, we need to press forward. We need to be resolute. We need to say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to stand on it. But how do you do both? Because this is such a difficulty, because oftentimes when you're moving forward, there's people who, they don't have the Spirit of Christ, and they're trying to stop you. And they're going to stand in your way and say, you can't go forward unless you go through me. But you need to go forward. So how do you go forward? And this is what she's saying here, that there's that balance that need to be. And we got to move forward, because what we're doing is not just to benefit ourselves, it's to benefit others. But there's those who will take it upon themselves that, no, they need to stop you. Right? Because if you move forward, somehow you affect them, I don't know, some negative way. And I'll finish reading it again because I just want to go over it, and I'm going to go to some text. God desired to have all who serve him be firm as a rock, where principle is concerned. Now, where principle is concerned, but meek and lowly of heart as Christ was. Then, abiding in Christ, they can do the work he would do were he in their place. A rude, condemnatory spirit is not essential to heroism in the reform for this time. All selfish methods of service of God are abominable in sight. So we're not supposed to be selfish. Now, I think we had to learn this the hard way. And the hard way to learn this is that you realize that not everybody want to do life the way you want to do this. I want to do church the way you want to do it. And so the problem then is what I'd run into, and what brought me here, especially in this type of thinking, was when we were in the regular church. The problem was all the pastors were coming through with a certain type of teaching. They were coming through what you call new theology. And they were going to come with Willow Creek, Saddleback method of evangelism of church. And so you're stuck because, as long as they keep saying this, pastor, the direction of the church was going to be one direction. And you couldn't move in another direction, because to move in another direction, then it's going to be a fight, because the church is just going to do what it's going to do from week to week. And I remember years back I said, what happened? At first, this was our process. I remember we said, we're going to give them a Sabbath school and a divine service. They can have it. We do Bible study. And we do Bible study until we blow in our face. But you could never move forward as a unit. Then after a while, get involved in Sabbath school, but you still couldn't move forward because the main function of church happens when? In divine service. And whatever is divine service is really the church. It's the thought of the church, it's the voice of the church, it's the movement of the church happens in divine service. So you realize, wait a minute, they still have the church. And the church never can do ministry. I remember years back there was a pastor that took over a church, and the church was in a poor community in New Jersey. And the pastor took over the church, and the pastor before, which was all part of the conference churches, the pastor before bought a building to open up a daycare, right? And the new pastor comes in and said they're going to sell the building. We don't need no daycare. And took the money and renovated the church. The church is more like a worship center, right? So the question was it the decision of the pastor before? Was it the decision of a member? Or was there a need in the community? See, because remember what I was saying, that there are certain reforms are needed independent of you and me. So would that be a good thing for the community to have another daycare? Would it be good for the church to have a daycare connected to the church? Because now the church is automatically connected to the community in a very practical service, not just singing. But remember, almost all these pastors were trained at the church is about worship. Think about it. In many of these churches we call, it's probably the evangelical leaning. The congregational churches, they're more about worship. So when you start talking about service, daycare, school, summer camp, VBS, restaurants, all these are the things that are periphery of the church. They'll be like, no, all the church needs to do is focus on worship. So that's not a minor thing, that's a major thing, and that's a major direction. It's celebration church. Like I was talking to Elder Jose this week about like an adult daycare, right? And I was saying an adult daycare is becoming a bigger business. And so we're talking about it, and I say, that's the direction as a church we need to be talking about moving in, because what the Adventist Church I did, to make a long story short, before I go to my main, the main text I want to go to, main set of texts. What the Adventist Church I did, I'd move away from service-oriented ministry back in the 80s, right? They went from service-oriented ministries, and they went to a more worship service. Like before, they used to have it as, before personal ministry, it used to be called lay ministries. Then they say it's personal. Lay ministries used to have hired Bible worker at the conference level, hired Bible worker at the conference level, hired lay preachers at the conference level, and it used to be organized from the conference. Then in the 80s, after Desmond Ford rebellion, they decided that we want to go more worship, and they fired all those workers. As a matter of fact, I used to keep one, but I don't have it anymore. I used to keep our old tithe and offering envelope. Part of the tithe used to go to Bible workers, because there used to be where you have the lay people work. Everybody was not always trained at the Andrews Oakwood University level. And many of them were lay workers, so they got rid of that, and they put in this thing called now personal ministry. And under that, especially in North America, witnessing and membership dropped because other people were coming in through the personal ministry, not personal ministry, lay work or lay whatever ministry department. Then the next thing they did, they get rid of things like, they made ADRA become international, and they made it start becoming local, and they got rid of the darkest departments. So now the church wasn't moving in a direction, all because of Desmond Ford, was moving in a direction where you have ministries, feeding the poor, clothing people, doing Bible study, doing all that type of stuff. The church was more, bring a big shot evangelists in, Mark Finley, Doug Batchelor, C.D. Brooks. They do a big evangelism. That's your evangelism. No food pantry, none of that. They get rid of all that stuff, because we now were moving towards the Sunday church. And just give me a quick little history. Now, I understood this all when I was in the conference, but what I never understood was independent. So what it is, you're trying to tell people, why don't we do this, why don't we do that? And you start getting into fights, because they're saying, no, we need to, I remember one time a person said, why don't you do what you're supposed to do? I was like, but I'm part of a system. The whole system is a system. So these are the direction where the pastors were running. So if the pastors are all trained to do it the Desmond Ford way, where it's all worship, or really the Sunday church way, worship, 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 and no helping the poor, helping your community. And now you look at a church and they say, oh, let's move forward trying to buy as a matter of fact, I remember there was one church that were even running a restaurant. vegetarian restaurant. All this type of stuff was going on, but they just slowly shut down because they like the church was like, no, we're not interested in anything like that. We're just interested into teaching people to come to Jesus to worship. I remember hearing pastor coming up preaching and said, well, people only come to church to worship. They don't come to church. This is why people come for church. And I'm thinking, most of these people come to church, they have mental health problems. They come to church to get some balm, some spiritual anointing from the pastor. But the pastor was, no, they're here for worship. They need to worship Jesus. So now, Galatians chapter 2, let's get into a discussion here. Galatians chapter 2. So I think hopefully that sets the kind of framework as to what I'm talking about here. So reformers are not destroyers, but must advance, not retreat. So how do we move forward? And as I say, it's been a long journey out of that mindset and trying to get into the mindset as how do you move forward? Because even in a church, a small church group, it becomes difficult because you have people who and I remember when we started together, we were all Adventists. And then I started realizing we're just an independent Adventist church. We still have the same mindset. The baggage is still there. And you can't move forward because what it is that how do you move forward when somebody's talking about what we need to do is prophecy, Bible study, what else? That's it. Like if we started now, we started at 6 o'clock, right? Or 5:55. Before, a few years ago, we couldn't do that. We'd have to start earlier, and I would have to probably do 3 hours of Bible study, and that's it. But the people wanted that we used to have amongst us. You couldn't even talk to them. You know nothing about them. You couldn't. If they were starving, you couldn't feed them. Why? Because that was the mindset. It was just about prophecy, end times, the Pope, blah blah blah, and nothing else. Sunday law. So you're stuck. Now, here's a scenario I'm going to show you now. Now, notice, I want you to keep that statement that I just read with Ellen G. White. We're going to now look at Galatians chapter 2. I said that to you before, right? Verse 7 through 14. And you're going to see now in Galatians chapter 2 how this statement that she makes in Galatians chapter 2, verse 7 to 14, is we're going to do a clash right here. This is what I call a clash, because it's going to seem like a contradiction, but you're going to see how powerful now the statement she makes that reformers must move forward and they must not destroy those, but you're going to see that it's a little bit more complicated. Look now, Galatians chapter 2. So it's this concept of freedom to operate and freedom to state the truth. Notice in Galatians 2, verse 7. But contrariwise, when they saw, this is the apostles when they met, I think it was mentioned today in the Sabbath school lesson, this morning, when they saw that the gospel of uncircumcisions were committed unto me, this is Paul speaking, as the gospel of circumcision was unto Paul, to Peter, right? So what's going on here? So he's saying Peter was ultimately the head, basically the main person that was going to be preaching to who? In plain language. The Jews, right? And Paul was going to be preaching primarily to who? The Gentiles, the uncircumcised, right? So the Gentiles and the Jews over here, are the two of them doing the same type of work? Yes. The gospel. But what's the difference? The audience is different, right? So the two of them are doing the same type of work, but the audience is different. And that becomes the thing now. Who's going to have... Go ahead. What are you saying? The mind. What is it in the mind you think?
The Jews' minds are different than the Gentiles.
So you yourself preaching them have to be in a certain mindset to communicate. Right. And then if you're preaching this one over, you have to be kind of in a different, because you're dealing with different set of challenges, right? Objections, right? So Peter seemed to be probably good at meeting that mind. Right? So the two of them are doing a separate work. Now remember, reformers are not supposed to be destroyers. We're supposed to be able to push forward and not try to stop the other person.
Paul was a Roman citizen.
So Paul was a Roman citizen and probably understand the Roman mindset very well. So he would understand how to bring the gospel to that Roman mindset and affect them in a way that Peter, who was literally a Jew, true Jew, so to speak. Yes.
One was... looked at dealt with citizenship. One was a Roman.
Literally.
Paul had the same rights and privileges as the Romans and the individuals that he was trying to reach.
So you go ahead.
And from Peter, they were occupied people. And he understood when I said, my brother, I understand what you're going through because I'm there with you. Where Paul was like, I really can't understand, because even when the trials of Paul, when they found out they locked up Paul and he was a Roman citizen, they were like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Things of different mindset and different places of different backgrounds. Their D&B were totally different to get them to where they were at that point.
Totally different.
The message was the same.
The gospel of Christ.
The gospel
Right.
of salvation.
The salvation or gospel. Notice verse 8 says, for he that wrought effectually in Peter to the apostleship of the circumcision, the same was mighty in me towards the Gentiles. So both of them is working on the same Holy Spirit, right? Yeah. Both of them are doing a work that is very special, important. But it's the two of them are doing something totally different in a way, in the sense of the audience. The audience is different. So these things are real to this day. You get what I'm saying? We're still running into the same type of things. My audience might not be somebody's audience. Your audience might not be somebody's audience, because somebody take a certain level of mindset. Notice in verse 9 it says, and when James and Cephas and John who seemed to be pillars, perceive the grace that were given unto me, they gave to me Barnabas the right hand they gave to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the what? Circumcision. So they say, you go, right? And we go over here. You go over there, and we go over here, and we go. Not a bad thing. It's interesting, his language, where he say, they seem to be pillars. What do you think? Why is he talking like that? And if you read this chapter, you know what's coming. But what is he talking? They seem to be pillars, right? You know they're the pillars, all right? But that could speak to who he is. Because who is Paul? Oh, he was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. Like, I don't know who these guys. I don't know who these guys are. All right, because they whatever. All right, so if you get that, you can get in the language and you can know what's coming. So he has a work to do, and he recognizes that they have a work to do, or they recognize that he has a work to do, and right, and so now that probably is part of the good thing about non-American corporate trademark issues, right? Without no trademark issues, what would make you and I Adventists or not Adventists? Nothing.
Nothing. Not a thing.
Not the thing. You would never know. It's the trademark it's this American document to protect, rights and stuff like that makes it, or law that makes it like that. See, then what was the trademark? Like, if they disagree with Peter and say, you can't preach to the Gentile, what were they going to do about it? What could they have done about it?
Nothing.
What are you going to do about it? Even if they say, you can't speak to the Gentile, you say, okay, see you later, what are you going to do?
Okay.
You didn't call me. You can't stop me, nor you can't start me. You didn't meet me on the road to Damascus. So what you going to tell me? Notice here, verse 10. Only they would that we should remember what? The poor, the same which I also was forward to do. Right? So he's saying, I'm already remembering the poor. Remember, Paul was the one that says, I hang with men of low estate. He went to some tent makers and made his lodging there with the tent makers. So Paul was somebody that was going to be amongst the poor, right? He wasn't going to forget the poor. So he remembered the poor, and he recognized the fact that Peter has his work to do. I have my work to do. So we see, notice, a reformer ought to go forward. I didn't understand this. And even when we're trying to do independent church, I didn't understand that if you're here, you have to understand that we're moving in a certain direction. We're not trying to take down the Adventist church. We're not trying to promote the Adventist church. We're not trying to take down any other independent ministry. We're not trying to promote any other independent ministry. They're doing their thing. We're doing their thing. And the reason why, because I don't know exactly what God is doing with them. And there's times, situations happen where we don't know how the Lord is working to bring about certain change. Like, the Lord sees the whole work. Right. I see this little part of the work. And I'm like, man, I'm laser focused. I'm going to get this part done. I don't know exactly this part of the work will affect the bigger work, but we're good, right? And there's certain things you learn over the years. You realize, like I said, I go all the time to read material from National Institute of Health, because they're always doing a lot of research and stuff. And a lot of times I read about, like, say, a certain, like I was reading recently about glutathione. And then I say, glutathione, food, and then on the Google it's a source. So I say, oh, it's a lot of people searching for what's the food source of glutathione. And it comes up, turmeric and blah, blah. And I'm reading the different, I'm saying, okay, so I'm not the only one. So you read the material, and they're probably more studying the chemical. But I want to know what's the natural source of the thing. The work that they're doing there, I don't want to stop them from doing it. I just don't have to do it. I don't have the end result, and I have to do it their end result. I can do it a different end result. I can go look at the herbs that have it and use it. So, that's just the point. And so the takeaway point, if someone was watching it, where am I trying to go to is that it's okay to allow someone else to do what they're doing, if it's not affecting us. And then we do what we're doing. And if somebody comes to us, they need to understand you're welcome to come as long as you're coming to help us do what we're doing. Now, if you want to do something else, you're welcome to go somewhere else, because we're not doing that. We're doing this over here, and we're happy to do this over here. In other words, after how many years, I remember we used to say independently preaching the everlasting gospel. And then I kind of move away from that, because I didn't want to tell people we're independent, per se, or not tell them, in the sense of, we would always tell somebody, if you come, look, this is an independent church, you know that, right? But more so, it was like, we're just doing our thing, and we couldn't care less. But more and more I realized, especially when we see what's going on in the media, especially the last few years, that I realized it is important to make people understand that there is a need for independent. Everything. Independent media, independent journalism, independent, somebody need to oversight somebody else that need to be independently overviewed. There's a need for that. And the longer I live, the more I realize, what happened? God is knowing what he's doing when he makes certain people independent, because it preserves certain things that would have been dead. I've seen many people who they're so, oh no, they have to defend the system. And I said, look at this person. This person only learned about certain Adventist unique teachings because of somebody independent was out there online or somewhere teaching it. They learn from that person and they get cocky, and then they start saying, oh no, you guys need to support the conference. I said, look at this person. This person was in a cave like a bat, dark as ever, sitting in the conference church, know nothing. They get a little information from YouTube or something. Now they're experts and they want to tell somebody like, none of them ever tell me. And they don't want to donate. Come on, sister. They don't want to donate to the person they got the information from, but they take the money, give it to the conference. So I kept them blind as a bat. So I've learned over the years that there's a need to be able to, it's just like I say, I remember I used to listen to this radio station called WBI. Back when he was radical. I don't know what's going on, because I've listened to it like about probably 10 years now. I've stopped listening to that thing. But I remember I used to listen to that back in the 2000 when they were firing left, right, and center. And, I look back at it and I say, there's a need for independence, because nowhere else you will hear what they were talking about. Nowhere else. And I've not, even to this day, I've not seen it. All these people jumping up and talking about their presenting stuff. I've never heard them presenting things that WBI was presenting. I remember WBI was the first, way before even September 11, that America is going into Afghanistan. They were calling it before it happened. They're going into Afghanistan, they're going in for the lithium. At that time, I was like, lithium? What is lithium? That's what people take when they're mentally ill. Right? Next thing you know, lithium is in all the laptop, and I was like, they called it cell phone, because what happened, all the technology people know that we needed that thing. And it's in Congo. Congo will, I say, for lithium reasons, they'll never be at peace, because we need it in our cars. Come on now. Go ahead, preacher. Right? That's the reality. So again, back to the text, what you understand that they're doing their thing over there. I don't need to attack them, even though I say that the people in the church oftentimes are in darkness. I remember, I'll give you an example, because somebody say, how dare you say that? Well, look, I preach what I see. I preach the obvious. A few years back, I was visiting my sister, a family member of my sister. I guess that it's more nuanced if I say a family member. But I could be specific. I was visiting my sister. So she was working with a conference. So I'm there, and after lunch, went to a conference church. After lunch, we went to this lady's home. Actually, she just passed away, I think, the beginning of this year. And she cooked a meal, a vegan meal, that I was impressed. I was like, wow. Lady's like in her 70s at this time. 70-something or 80-something-year-old. The food she have made, a homemade ice cream that you'd be like, man, this is better than commercial. She made gluten that was like the singing cowboy. It was like gluten, like chicken. You know, it was so soft and nice. I was just eating the food and thinking, there's something with this woman. What's going on? I can't ask, but I said, there's something about this woman. This woman don't seem mainline. And then I'm sitting in a chair, right? And we talking, and then my hand like slip off the handle of the chair, and I touch a magazine. And I lift up the magazine and look at the magazine. And the magazine was either the Firm Foundation or one of those magazines from one of these offshoot ministries, right? And I put it back down and I say, aha, aha. She's pulling some information from different place. So we keep talking. I'm like, I want to ask. and so like, where are you getting this stuff from? Where are you learning these things? Why are you interested in these things? And then we started talking, and I said, okay, you keeping abreast with what's going on, not just coming out of, what's the main magazine? Adventist something. The review. You're going beyond the review. I said, okay, so we see what's going on. So, you make people do their thing because, okay, how does it hurt somebody if she gets all that material and she want to live healthy and she has certain belief systems? It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't hurt the church. But somebody go, oh, yeah, it does. How? I don't know how. You're being silly. So, continue reading now. So, both of them, he said, I forward to do. Now, verse 11. Notice here the connection now, because remember the statement is the reformer must move forward. But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him what? To the face, because he was to be blamed. Now he just saying, Peter made a little mistake. He said, what happened next? Peter did the wrong thing. Not, Peter made a little sidestep, he missed the mark a little bit. He was wrong. He was to be blamed for before that. So Peter is leading the work in the Gentile, in the Jews. And Peter now going to mess it up. And this is what I'm talking about, freedom. And yes, you must not be domineering and stuff like that, but wrong must be called out. Yep. Wrong must be called out. And that's the problem. And it's that balance. Yes, I must go and attack. But when somebody do wrong and say wrong, there's a certain point that you must withstand them to the face. It's not the intention, but you got to. And oftentimes, you don't want to get into controversy. You just want to do your work. You want to just keep, as you say, put your shoulder to the plow and keep plowing. But as you're plowing, there's somebody who's saying something that's wrong. Just wrong. Right. And for me, a lot of my stance over the years has been just ignore them, just keep working. So I'm not trying to stop somebody. Because a lot of these people, they're jealous. And they're hateful and all this type of stuff, and they want to stop you. And so, you can ignore them. But notice here, Peter didn't do right. For before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them that were of what? Circumcision. See, a lot of things that we dealt with in the church, I realized we never dealt with if Paul was around. A lot of things we dealt with church. Paul would say, that's wrong. How when you all were good, when you all were together, you all sat together and do good, and this person come along now, you withdraw. A lot of racism that we see in the church would never be tolerated if Paul was around. Paul would say, well, you good with these people now, but then this other person come over here, you withdraw. We'd be like, no, you can't do that. See, so it's not that say we want to beat out on certain things, but wrong has to be called out. You can't say you're a Christian and you're not kind to the poor, you're not kind to strangers. That has to be called out. You can't, like recently I saw this guy on Facebook and he's going after anything to do with independent. but it's somebody that trained at Heartland. He was trained at Heartland, then he went to 2 consecutive Protestant university, got his master's, got his PhD, and now he's beating the independent people. Beating them. Right? Beating them because now I'm the man. I have a PhD. And guess what happened? He teach part-time at Oakwood University. This guy called Dr. Alatunje. He teaches at Oakwood University, and he has a little church that he passed the part-time. So part-time at Oakwood, part-time. And he's going to beat the independent. And I'm thinking, look, I'm off the plantation. I'm off the plantation. Well, you going to call me back on the plantation. No, but he ain't come, because nobody never talked this type of stuff to me. Because he will get blistered. They'll get, as I say, you ever get a cherry? It hurts. Because again, I'm off the plantation. How you gonna call me back on the plantation? I don't respond to master. How you gonna tell me to respond to? Because you are.
Because I don't want you to be free.
I'm free. Like, I'm not gonna go back to that. I'm free from that. What am I gonna go back to that? I'm not saying, look, you can't take a check and do the job and minister to the people you minister. Go ahead. But if I'm not attacking you, if I'm not stopping you from staying on the plantation, enjoy being in master's house and be master's boyfriend or girlfriend. But I'm not gonna be that. You know what I'm saying? So you stay over there, and I'm not going to stay over there. But they take it in on their head that said they're going to want to pull you down. And you're not like, you don't see these people. And he wasn't talking to me per se. He was talking to some other independent ministers. And I'm like, why are they suffering this little thing here? Why are they allowing him to run his mouth like that? Because you don't know what you're talking about. Brother Green.
If you look what Paul was saying about Peter right here, I think he wanted to be have his cake and eat it at the same time. Yeah. And you want to be close to those who are of influence.
That's right.
So, like when I was growing up, there's people that, they're friend with you.
Yep.
But when those people of influence come around,
They pull away.
They don't know you.
Right, go ahead.
Like, oh, you don't know me?
And he's like, but we're friends. We hang out and...
You used to come over me all day chicken back and dumpling.
That's right. All right.
I know you don't know me. Oh, chicken back and dumpling? Poor people food. Poor people food. You see poor people food with me. I know you don't remember that we used to eat poor people food and lick the plate and all that type of stuff. Because we hungry together. And you forget me, and then you want to disrespect me. And understand, we all in the struggle together. Right? You're struggling for a spot, and we all in the struggle trying to preach a little something to bless the people. And you forget that. And that's why Peter was like, he's there. And let's read the rest of it. Paul says it best. It says, before Jesus separated himself in verse 13, and other Jews dissembled likewise with him. So he causing them now, he caused an avalanche. Insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. They're like two-faced. Yep. Right? So Barnabas got caught up with it. So he noticed, he pointed out that Barnabas is not supposed to get caught up with it. And he even caught up. Now, I might say this because I've thought recently that it's not that racism is not in America, but I think this president is pushing it.
Amen.
It's not that I believe that whites are not. I believe, there's racism in people. People are prejudiced and stuff like that. And probably some people are really racist, but they can keep it on the wraps. I think the president is bringing it out. He's encouraging it. And I don't think it's just a matter of America is racist. I think he's, like they say, you're inciting right.
Exactly. He's inciting it.
You're inciting it. So it's not like they're not capable of doing it. It's just that when you have somebody, if you have somebody encouraging people to do crimes, they'll do it.
Exactly. You're being incited.
You do it, and you might thought about it before, but this person is saying do it. They're egging you on, and so you do it. And so what happened is that he said Peter he just be specific. Now is that he attacking? No, he's just simply saying, don't start to do certain things because you cause trouble. And Peter has to be blamed because notice he almost kind of let Barnabas off because Barnabas got caught up with it. So when people are starting to do something, because what happened when a brother, like the brother that say he has a PhD and all that, start to now denigrate, say what another independent preacher is doing. I'm beating down these independent guys who are benefiting somebody, right? Then basically you're saying what they're preaching is of none effect. It's no value. And they're preaching things that he knows the conference is not preaching. Conference pastors are not preaching. And if there's conference pastors preaching, we don't know. Because we don't see them. They're not trying to put their material out there. I'm on Facebook. How many times I see somebody sharing our conference pastor trying to put their material out there? How many times you see something on YouTube and stuff like that? So how you're going to be denigrating somebody who's trying to put something out there to the people, to tell the people that they probably should stay away from the fried chicken sandwich from Popeyes?
Well, they would just influence, just as the other disciples were influenced.
Right.
Because if you go back to the Bible, you even go to the beginning in the Old Testament and say, well, they're not from our group.
Right.
In the New Testament, the same thing. They're not with us.
They're not
Should
with
we
us.
stop them? And if you look a little further, you say where it says John wanted fire to come down to destroy them because they didn't accept Christ.
Right.
So this is just a teaching that was handed down
It's human.
among others.
Yeah, it's human nature.
Human nature, which still is with us today.
That's right.
Because you see, this brother said whatever to the ministries. So where is he getting that from?
It's
So
It's a crab in a bucket kind of thing.
So he's just being influenced by the wrong teachers, just like the disciples were.
Right. Notice in verse 14, but when I saw that they walked not uprightly. This is very clear what's going on. He's not mincing words. According to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou being a Jew livest as the manner of Gentiles, and not do as the Jews, why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? So he's saying, Peter, you're free from this type of stuff, right? Why you're forcing people into something that you're free from? You're free. You ain't living as a Jew. And you Jew. If anybody's a Jew, Peter is a Jew. And Peter not living as a Jew. And Peter now trying to encourage Gentiles to live as Jew. Or to put up with that stuff. Because remember, the middle wall of partition, NGY say, is the prejudices and the customs that held the Jews back and made them put up a wall to wall themselves out from everybody else. It was prejudices and customs. Because we are brethren. Right? We are brethren. We can take each other's heart. We can take each other's liver, lungs, everything. But when you start putting up prejudice, you start to say, no, I'm different from this person. I can't hang with this person. I can't be with this person. Why? Why? That's some customs and prejudice in the society. And we put up these things that we make stumbling blocks that is not necessary. And so before I go to my next text, I want to read a statement again, and I'm going to go to some more texts to broaden this concept here. That as reformers, we have to reform, but we have to move forward. Pastor White.
I was just thinking about what you said, but that was Peter who grew up, and he wasn't, as you said, he wasn't living like a good Jew. And then all of a sudden, he's converted now, and he's the Jewess of Jews. So being hypocritical. So it's basically those who are living in America now, they are being hypocritical when your grandfather came on a boat.
That's right.
Come on now.
Yes, well,
When
they didn't come with
sometimes
banana.
your daddy came on a boat.
That's right.
Some of them came off the boat, and they're blocking people from coming in. That's all I have to say.
That's right. And they're coming begging.
Yep.
Coming dying over there in Pennsylvania in the mines. They were living the high life.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we were living. What high life you were living? You ain't living a high life. You're dying like dogs, like everybody else. Just trying to make ends meet. I know that you make ends meet. You're like, oh, I'm better than everybody else. How? We all there. So that's what it is. And so, not to take, to be taking people out. Like, why are we going to be trying to take people out? And so if you try to take me out, then I might have to defend myself. I'm not trying to beat you up for beating you up, but I'm just like, I'm going to have to defend myself. And that's where all the time I'm like, I'm not going to defend myself. There's been situations happening over the last few years. I ain't even defend myself. I just leave it alone. Because I say, I'm not going to engage these people, because if I engage them, I might have to try to take them out. You see the problem? If I engage you, I might have to start firing hard and I might take you out. Because always, they say people live in glass house shouldn't what? Stone. And there's all these people, they're so proud of their biblical whatever, but they're all over the place in the map when it comes on to Bible understanding. And so you can start taking them out, but I'm like, why am I? You don't want to fire shots at your own brethren. So I read part of the statement here again. Reformers are not destroyers. They will never seek to ruin those who do not harmonize with their plans and assimilate to them. So was Paul trying to destroy Peter? No. What was Peter? Was that having to do with plans, harmonize with the plan? Was that going to mess up even Peter's ministry?
If he continued.
Yeah, it would have messed up his ministry. This was looking out for Peter. To me, like a situation like that, it's like, leave the brethren alone. You go figure out how to get a full-time job at Oakwood. You go figure out to get 2 more churches under your belt so you can get a full-time pay. Why are you attacking these brethren? You're wasting your time. Don't go after me. Like it's good when you see one in his office. Yeah. Right? Because you're going to stop and then you get taken. Why you messing up everybody flourish? And what Peter was doing was total. Now, in a situation where it's different, then I'm not going to. There's people that you could invite them to preach this thing. Somehow they believe that in that, but I guess to a doctrine to preach about just about anything. It would be nice if I don't need to dis. Is when people added firmest degenerate. If you don't go, if I'm over here, been a radio program. I don't want to hear it. Just don't. Sometimes it might sound wrong. Guys keep shooting. You know what I'm saying? Because I need something going. I'll give you an example. There was a case where this young man, Matthew chapter 9, verse 10, went guns or whatever, and he said he's going to kill it. It's tired of the ice. Now, if I say to something, say, look at the culture, specifically